Hello there and welcome back to another video here on Wrist Watch Revival. My name is Marshall. Thank you so much for coming along. This time on the bench, check this thing out. We have this really cool Seiko automatic chronograph from the early 1970s. Now you can tell just from the design that this thing kind of screams early 70s with the crazy colors, the gold yellow dial, the blue and the red on the outside. And the case design, also that sort of cushion case, they call it, where it has the rounded sides and the less pronounced lugs. That's all 1970s to the core. Now, this particular watch has both an interesting history from the watch model perspective, and also this exact one has a really cool personal history too. So the model of this watch is called a Pogue. That's not what Seiko calls it. That's what watch collectors call it. And it's because an astronaut made this watch famous. If you've been around watches a little bit, you may know that the moon watch is the Omega Speedmaster. That's the one that was the first watch on the moon, and that's the one that NASA chose for its astronauts to wear when they were in space flight. Now it's kind of interesting because this one is named after an astronaut named William Pogue, because he wore this model kind of rogue style. He put it in his pocket and brought it up to a space station. He also had an Omega Speedmaster, but he preferred this watch. Now, this particular one has not been running well. Let's take a look at how it's doing on the time grapher, and I'll tell you the story of this one as well. Well, this is a little bit weird. So the time grapher works as a microphone. It listens to the sounds that the watch makes, and then it can tell you information about how well it's running. And it's actually having a hard time picking up a signal at all, although it does look like it's picked up something here after I start the chronograph. But I can't even get a good reading on it, and that means that it's not running either at all or well. By the way, that's the original Seiko bracelet on that thing. That's pretty cool. You don't see those too often. Nice big Seiko logo on there. And you can see on the back here as well. So we'll start by taking off the bracelet, and then we're going to take this thing apart, take a look at what's going on with it, and try to get it running again. That's what we do on this channel, and I'm really glad you're here for the journey, because this is actually my first time working on an automatic chronograph of any sort, at least on the channel here. And this is Seiko's version. It's quite a bit different. Ooh, this one's got some dirt in between the lugs too, so we'll give that a quick clean with some peg wood. That just helps pre-clean it. The case will go into the ultrasonic cleaner, and should take care of the rest of that. But sometimes when the gunk is kind of heavy, it's a little bit better to knock it off ahead of time. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got as far as the movement. Very nice. There is the very practical Seiko automatic chronograph. This is a 6139 movement. And the reason I say practical is because it's not very pretty. Like, there's a lot of kind of stamped parts here, and really no decoration to speak of outside of a few machine lines or something. Ooh, I see some rust here. We'll need to take a look at that in a little bit. On the crown, it also has this extra gear and a spring, so there's something going on with that. And shoot, that does look pretty rusty indeed. Hopefully the rust didn't get any further than that, but we'll check it out in the movement. But typical for the time frame, these Seiko movements, they are not super great to look at, but boy, they are really well made, really well engineered, and really well thought out. Oh man, look at that dial. Just gold sunburst yellow. I mean, that thing just screams. This is really the hallmark of this watch, and it's a big part of the reason why people love it is the design. As I mentioned, Captain William Pogue, he didn't get his Omega Speedmaster while he was doing his training for his mission. And when the mission came around, they did eventually give him his Speedmaster, but he had been using this thing, this Seiko, all the way up until then. And so he said, well, I'm kind of used to this watch. I'll bring this one up with me. And he ended up just bringing both, so that I suppose he could be within code, but also use the watch that was more comfortable to him. Okay, so I can take off all the hands here, though I do notice that the sweep seconds hand, that's that long one, it's actually bent. It's also supposed to be red, and it looks like all the paint's worn off, and somehow it has a very strong bend in it. How in the world did that happen? I have no idea, but that's going to be a problem. Might need to be replaced, in fact. I'm going to have to see about that. But yeah, we can now remove the dial. And as you can see, it comes off with a little post here, and we can take that away. Boy, that dial's actually in pretty decent shape. There's a little bit of damage on it, but overall, it still does the thing that that dial does, which is look really bright, really shiny, and really eye-catching. Okay. Now I can take off the automatic winding rotor, and then this is the automatic works. This is another good example of Seiko's design. I'll call it genius. They're just incredible at this stuff. This is only a few parts, and it's a very clean, effective way of doing a self-winding module on a watch like this. They're really incredible the way that they've designed these. As you can see, this watch kind of has it all. It has a day and date disc as well. So it's an automatic chronograph with day and date. It's got a lot going on. This particular watch has a really great story to it as well. This is, honestly, this is the type of watch that makes this hobby so rewarding, and why I love doing it is getting to restore things like this. This one came to me from a Patreon supporter named Jordy, who reached out. And he said when he was 5 years old, his single mom put him in the Big Brother. There's a Big Brothers, Big Sisters program where you can kind of have mentorship. And that introduced him to Mike. Mike was his big brother. And he said he's one of the most wonderful and caring individuals I've ever known. That's how he described Mike. He said he's big-hearted, hardworking, and a classic car nut. And one of the things about Mike is that he always wore his Seiko Pogue watch. That's what this is here. And 45 years later in life, Mike is still a constant in Jordy's life. Mike and his wife have become kind of honorary grandparents to Jordy's daughter. And Mike, it was really touching. He said he's been the best father I've ever had. And that's just incredible. And Jordy had visited Mike a few times recently and noticed that he wasn't wearing his, quote, legendary watch. This is the kind of watch that makes you say stuff like that, though. And so Jordy asked why, and Mike said it wasn't running. But he took it to a repair shop, and they just told him no. They said there's nothing they could do with it. So he threw it in a drawer because it wasn't working. So Jordy, who had been watching my channel, thought about me, and he told Mike about it, and they watched a couple of videos together. And Mike said, all right, dug the watch out of a drawer, and he told Jordy to send it to me. And if I could get it running, then he would leave it to Jordy when he passes on. So Jordy said, okay, I'll reach out to the guy. And he did end up getting a hold of me. And then on top of that, Mike is waiting to have heart surgery currently. And so Jordy had the kind of cool idea that he wanted to get both this watch ticking and also have the successful surgery for Mike so that both were, quote, running right. I love that. And then he says that way I can keep them both around for a long time. So as you might imagine, this watch has sentimental value that's through the roof for not only Jordy, but also Mike, who owned it all of these years. And that's our mission today. We are on a mission to get this thing fully restored and back onto the wrist of Mike, hopefully for a lot of years to come, and then Jordy down the line as well. Now, as you can see, this is a complicated watch, right? I just took off the kind of normal bridges on the top, and now we get to see the chronograph mechanism underneath. There's two big springs that hold it together, and then there's two important wheels. I just took off one of them. That's the minute recording wheel. So when a chronograph starts going, it will show you in seconds how long it's been running. But if you need to time longer than that, it needs to have a sub wheel or a sub dial that can show you how many minutes it's been going for. Some of them also have hours. This one just has minutes though. And then there's also the chronograph hand in the middle, wheel in the middle that I haven't quite taken off. This is a sort of a type of a column wheel chronograph. I just took the column wheel itself off. And now we go back to the normal stuff. This is the barrel bridge with the ratchet wheel on top. And you can see the barrel underneath. I already let the mainspring down, so there's no risk here in just going ahead and taking off the whole thing. So let's see if I can do so. There we go. And as you can see, that wheel in the middle, look how complicated that thing is. So that's the part that I'm actually most concerned about right there. Mainly because they're hard to find. That thing has the capability to break, and if it does, that can be one of the harder things to track down. Though that one looked like it was intact. Okay, this is actually the click and the click spring. They're one part on these Seikos. That little metal, it's just a stamped piece of metal, and that's all it does. Here's the barrel. You can see a bunch of dirt underneath it. That's a pretty common sign of a watch that is in need of a service. By the way, if you're interested in servicing watches like this, or maybe buying them off of eBay and reselling them, or gifting them, or helping relatives out who have it, or if you just want to do it yourself, I highly recommend this hobby. I try to kind of push people towards it because I think that there's this idea that this isn't something that would be accessible to somebody, and it actually is. I am in the same situation that you're probably in now, where you're going, well, I can't really do that. And it's like, no, I did. I learned how to do it. And I actually started a website with my friend Alex. It's called sutcliffehansen.com. There's a link down below. And what it is it's a place where you can get toolkits that I've personally curated that can help you get into this hobby. We also have videos from Mark Lovick over at WatchFix. These are tutorial videos. They're the best in the business. They're the ones that I took when I first started. That's why I wanted to partner up with Mark. And we sell his tutorials there as well. And we also have some other stuff there, like ultrasonic cleaners, time graphers, and that kind of thing. So again, sutcliffehansen.com if you're interested, or if you know somebody who might be interested in checking out this wonderful hobby that I stumbled into and have not emerged from the rabbit hole yet. Okay. As you can see, many of these parts do look very similar to what we normally see on the watches that I take apart here. There's just some extra stuff. One thing you may have noted if you're keen-eyed there is that there's just a sliding clutch, but there's no clutch wheel. This movement eschews the ability to manually wind. You have to use the automatic winding works to wind the watch, which is kind of genius, because if you think about the number of times that you actually wind a watch manually that has an automatic winding module on it, it's almost never. And so Seiko was like, let's just leave it off. It makes it a simpler design. It leaves more room for other stuff that they may want to do. And it just makes sense. I'm continually impressed with again, it's dryly practical. Like, you're not getting a lot of like art out of these movements, but boy, if you want something practical, this is it. And I have to say, I've already got this watch apart. And again, this is my first time working not only on this movement, but also just on an automatic chronograph at all. And I already have it apart. It's really impressive. Okay, so I'm going to protect these calendar wheels by just putting them in these little dial holders. You know, you can just put them in a little box, but I get a little bit paranoid about it because those have paint on them and they're very thin, and I just wouldn't want to see them get damaged on accident. Now I'm going to put everything into one of my parts trays here. This is a way that you can organize and keep dust off of the parts. I'm doing it because I already have one project that's in the watch cleaning machine. So I just need to set these aside for a few minutes while it finishes, and I don't want them just sitting out. Take a look at the inside of the case back, and you can see some watchmaker marks. These are where people used to scratch in codes or numbers or dates to show when and how often it was serviced and by whom. And as you can see, this watch actually has been serviced a number of times. I can remove the case back gasket here. I'll likely just be replacing that. Even though that one doesn't seem like it's in horrible condition. Sometimes they turn into almost like a plastic, but that one seemed fine. Now check out what we've got here with the case. There's a lot going on. There's pushers in here. There's rust. There's also the teeth on the bottom of this part here. And you can see the pushers, how they push in. So there's kind of a lot going on with this thing. There's also an inner rotating bezel. That's what those teeth were attached to. I don't know how to get the pushers out. Whoa! Okay. I guess there's nothing holding them in currently. So I can just remove the spring and the other pusher here. Oh, geez. Wow, there's a lot of... It looks like the only thing holding them in was that gunk there. Otherwise, I think they would have just come flying out. So in desperate need of a cleaning is the case, no doubt about it. Let's take a look at the pusher. Uh-oh. Do you see... Well, they roll all over the place. It looks like the pusher arm was a little bent. Oh, totally. Look at that. That is supposed to be straight. Yeah, so that's no good. I may need to look at replacing those pushers too so that they can function properly. I can remove the outer bezel now, and that should give me access to the crystal and the inner bezel. I have this bezel removal tool. As you can see, it uses pressure from 4 different angles at the same time so that you're not doing that prying on one edge thing that can, I don't know, it potentially can cause damage if you don't do it carefully. This tool's been good. I use it all the time. And you can see that there's there's like a gasket, and then the crystal, which looks quite beat up, is sitting on top of it. Okay, but it does come out. And you can see the inner bezel here too. Does it just come out? No, that seems a little bit firm. Maybe I can remove the gasket and then see. Okay. Wow, that was in there really good. That actually looks like it's in decent shape too. Okay, and now I can see that everything just comes out. So interestingly, that inner... Oh, I see. There's a cover. Okay. Oh, and then there's like a spring that goes around the sides, and then there's that plastic inner bezel. And that's it. That actually is the whole entire case disassembled. Wow, that's a lot though. That's a pretty complicated case. Once again, I'm going to use my peg wood just to clean up any of the more baked on grime before I put this thing through the ultrasonic cleaner. Yeah, the inner bezel is interesting because it's gray. It's almost like a white color now, but that started its life out yellow, like a bright yellow. And it looks like it's just kind of faded over time. I think that's fairly typical for these things. Take a look at all those case parts. I'm not used to that. Okay, but we can throw stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner now. And that means I use distilled water and then a little bit of Liquinox here, which is just a concentrated kind of industrial level detergent. Alex over at Watch Repair Tutorials recommended it. I started using it and I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. There's a whole bunch of different ultrasonic specific cleaners and detergents that you can use. And I actually haven't found like a huge difference between them. So, just pick one that works. You can even use dish detergent if you want. What we're really doing here is degreasing, right? We're not doing any like chemical level cleaning. This is water-based cleaning for the big metal parts, basically. And I have to put everything in there. And wow, that is a lot. I mean, I filled up the whole basket. I don't think I've ever done that on this ultrasonic cleaner before. And we'll fire it up and let it do its thing. And then we'll come back to it and see how it did. Now, in the meantime, we do need to get the movement into the watch cleaning machine. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the cleaning cycle, and then it'll be a rinse, and then a drying cycle as well. This is an old watch cleaning machine, but it works really, really well. The new ones have ultrasonic built into them as well, but this one's kind of old school. While the parts are being cleaned up, I did want to mention that I've got a Patreon for this channel. Patreon's a website you can go to support your favorite content creators. It's a way to support them directly. I really want to say a big thank you to everybody who supports me over on Patreon. It means the world to me. You get some cool extra perks as well. You get to see the rough cuts of the videos. So, before they go up, I'll post them on there when they're almost done, like basically done, but I like to watch them over before I actually post them on YouTube just to make sure that everything's perfect before I hit that publish button. And you get to see the earlier versions. That's just one of the things you get for being a Patreon supporter. Thank you. I really appreciate it. There's a link down below for that. Take a look at how the parts came out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and yeah, they're looking a lot better. And the water in the ultrasonic cleaner looks like it's a little worse, but that's okay. Oh yeah, these parts are actually cleaned up pretty nicely, it seems. And they needed it. As you could see when we did the disassembly, there was a lot of caked on dirt on that thing. And this is where we kind of get to see what we've actually got. You know, if things have worn away to the point that they need to be replaced, or if cleaning them is good enough. Case back's always kind of tricky to pick up, even with the big tweezers. There's all the case parts. And then I'll give those a quick rinse in water, and then we can dry them off. And with everything done, take a look at our, wow, our pile. I mean, holy smokes. That's a lot of parts for that chronograph, plus all the stuff for the case. There's just a lot going on. Now, I did put this through the cleaner. Let's take a look at how it looks. Oof. Well, that looks pretty bad. So I want to disassemble this. It looks to me like there's a normal crown stem, and then there's a spring and an extra wheel. I believe it's called a star wheel. And I'm going to use this tool. This is called a pin vise. It just allows you to hold on to small things with your hand. And then what I should be able to do is just unscrew the crown with a little bit of, there we go. And it'll come free from the stem. And then I got to figure out how these other parts, oh, look at all that rust. Yikes. Yeah, it looks like that spring is actually just rusted in place, but I think I can dislodge it. Maybe. Goodness sakes. I don't want to ruin the spring, but I do need to get it. Okay, there we go. Okay, I think I've got it separated out from that wheel now. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it didn't go far. Those type of springs can really fly, but they're also kind of big. Boy, that thing is bad, though. Can I get it off of there? I think so. Let's start, though, by putting it in some Evapo Rust. This is a solution or a product that's made that kind of, I don't know chemically how it works, but it takes rust and it kind of gets rid of it, and it also kind of turns it into whatever's left that isn't rusted away, if that makes any sense. And that should let me get that wheel off of that stem. I'm just going to let this sit for probably a couple of days at least, because it has a lot of work to do to let us know what's left there and see what's going on. Okay, now we can start the reassembly process. And to do that, I'm going to start off with the mainspring barrel. And this is an automatic watch, so I need a little bit of what they call braking grease to go around that outside. And then I can use my favorite, the mainspring winders, to wind up this mainspring. Once it's wound into the tool, you can take a look and see that it's seated in there, reverse of how it will be in here, but basically the same. And then, oh, the best sound you could possibly hope for. And now we have the mainspring in there. This is a new mainspring, by the way. So that'll give us the best chance to get good amplitude, which is kind of the strength of how well the watch is running, and hopefully reduce any issues that we may have. Because besides definitely needing a service, I don't know if this watch has any other faults. Taking it apart and cleaning the parts, it didn't reveal anything obvious to me, but I'm also far from a Seiko expert. There's people who kind of specialize in this type of stuff. Even here on YouTube, my friend from My Retro Watches, Mike, I reached out to him when I first took on this project, and he kind of walked me through. In fact, he was really nice. He sent me a voice message that really just kind of broke down everything. He also has a video where he does a full restoration on this movement, and that was really helpful for me too. One of the great things about doing this hobby now is that there are a lot of people doing it now. Like if you look around on YouTube, I'm far from the only one who's doing videos like this at this point. And that is really helpful because you can often find somebody who's worked on a watch that maybe you haven't. And I'm lucky enough to be able to reach out to people like Mike and get, you know, that kind of advice from him, because him and I are buddies and we talk every once in a while online and stuff. But, you know, even without that, I could use his video as a reference and it can be really helpful. Okay, I can put the mainspring barrel in after putting the center wheel and its bridge in place. And the rest of the train of wheels, including the escape wheel, third wheel, fourth wheel. And I believe that I'm supposed to put this in now. This is that chronograph running wheel that I mentioned that has that kind of complicated stuff going on the top. Okay, so this one goes right through the center wheel there. And on the other end of this is what we will attach the running seconds hand, that long red seconds hand, the one that was bent, that attaches to that long pivot on this. Now I need to put on this rather large bridge. This isn't like a normal one. This covers a lot of ground. It's got some of the vertical clutch stuff going for the chronograph. It also has, you know, the barrel goes into this bridge as well as a few of the pivots. So it kind of covers a lot of ground here. But once I get it properly seated, I can now continue and put on the click/click spring. As I mentioned, this is a really just a genius little part. It's just a piece of stamped metal that's been bent, but it functions as two things at the same time. I assume it's extraordinarily cheap to produce. It's easy to replace. I think a skilled watchmaking machinist could make one of these. I mean, there's a lot to like about that, especially when you compare it to the Swiss variants, which aren't like that. Now I can put some medium viscosity oil here in between where the barrel and the barrel bridge meet up, so to make sure that that rotates smoothly. And I can put on the ratchet wheel. As you can see, there's a square hole in the ratchet wheel top, and that goes over the top of the barrel arbor, which also is square at the very top. And now I can go ahead and screw down the ratchet wheel. And as you can see, the chronograph running wheel does go under a little bit of tension there, so that's probably a good sign. I don't know. Now I can give a quick cleaning to the pallet fork before installing it. My goal here is to get this watch where I can run it and make sure that the movement itself is functional, and then we'll continue with the rebuild and try to get the chronograph running and all that other stuff. But if the underlying watch isn't working properly, then the rest of it kind of doesn't matter. And since the watch was effectively not running when we received it, I mean, it technically was turning over a little bit, but it wasn't, it wasn't even able to be picked up on the time grapher. Then, of course, our focal point here is going to be to get the thing running. The way that these movements work, this one and any of the Swiss ones as well, is that you've got, underneath it all, there's a basic watch movement like the ones that we work on this channel all the time. And then on top of that, there's modules that are put into place. This is a way that you can view it. There's some that are literally a module, like it's totally a normal movement with the whole thing that's just kind of screwed down on top of it. This one's a little bit more integrated, as they say, but either way, it's extra stuff that's added to add more functionality, but it pulls its power and anything that happens from it from the same place, which is the mainspring ultimately. And so we need to make sure that that stuff's running, or else the rest won't go at all. Okay, to continue the build here, I need to put on these springs. These are very tricky. They kind of loop around a midpoint, but they act on two things simultaneously. And so it can just be a little bit tricky to get this thing pulled over. Oh, just like that. You see how it loops around that post? That is exactly what I wanted to see. But we're not done yet. There is yet another that we need to do here. This one's actually smaller. I do not know the name of these parts. I kind of figured out what they do, but I'm not sure what Seiko calls these. I try not to get too caught up on the names of parts, though. I mean, there's parts that different people from different eras and different parts of the world, it's the same thing, and they have different names for it, for example. Okay, a little bit of grease goes on that column wheel, and then I can put this, I guess this is a chronograph bridge. That's what I would call it. That's probably what it's called. And I can put that on top as well. This bridge has pivots for the chronograph wheel in the middle, as well as the minute recording wheel, the one I mentioned before. It's a little bit hard to get lined up, so I use this stick to make sure that everything stays put while I screw it down. And now we get a moment of truth. So this is the balance going in, and this will tell us if we have a running watch. Oh, and look at that. It already wants to kick up and run. I don't even have this bridge screwed down yet, and it's already starting to go. Oh, that is awesome. Wow. So hopefully it really did just need a service. And remember, I haven't even oiled this thing yet. This is how I have to wind it up, by the way. I'm using a screwdriver on the top of the barrel itself, or the ratchet wheel rather. And look at that. It is running once again. And that means that we can go ahead and oil up the jewels here. As you can see, this one has a very typical Seiko shock protection system. It's a 3-pronged spring. And so that requires, at least for me, two tools. I used my finest tweezers there to get those off. And then the downside to this system is that you do need to remove this spring, so it's kind of floating around, and they're a little finicky to handle because they want to jump away. So as you can see, I'm handling this extremely carefully so that I don't see it go flying. But the upside is it is quite easy to work on it. You just rotate it over to the side and it comes right off. I prefer the Swiss version, the Inca block style ones, where the spring actually is held into the setting on the top, so you don't have to worry about it jumping away. But at any rate, it works similarly where there's a cap jewel and a hole jewel, and I'll put those in a solvent to dissolve any leftover oil. I will further encourage that cleaning with a little piece of pegwood here because there's some dried on oil on the flat surface of that jewel. But again, another dip into the solvent will clean all of that away and leave a perfectly clean mirror finish on it. And all I have to do, this is a little harder than it looks, but I've gotten better at it, is to apply just a small droplet of oil right in the center of it. And then I can put the hole jewel on the bottom, and it'll kind of grab onto it thanks to the oil filling in that gap and capillary action. And then I can, once again, put this back into the watch. And you can see the oil in the center. It will suspend it directly above. Now I can replace this spring. This, again, it takes a little bit of practice, but the system works quite well. Basically, you can see that there's a lip around the edge. And look at this, it's doing it by itself. I don't even have to do it. That's pretty funny. That first one kind of seated itself automatically. I like that. Anyway, but all you have to do is just make sure that all 3 of those prongs are underneath that outer lip, and then just give it a little turn to make sure it's lined up, and boom, you've got shock protection system on the balance. Let's take a look at the time grapher and see how it's doing. All right, 233 degrees of amplitude, and it's actually running quite well, though I did notice something. Upon further tests, I noticed that it would run well for a while, and then it would do this. Do you see how it just sort of drops off -9, -7 seconds? It would do that repeatedly on kind of a loop. And well, Mike had warned me that this could be an issue, not this specific thing, but that there is an issue that is really common to these movements with the barrel and how it interacts with the barrel bridge. Basically, the barrel itself will get too loose, and the bushings that are supposed to hold it together will fail or wear out over time. And that can cause consistency issues with how the watch runs, particularly over the long term. And it can eventually lead to like a dramatic loss of amplitude and even stopping the watch at some point. So take a look here. Now watch what happens. Do you see the movement there between where I'm putting my tweezers? And I can show you here too. Do you see how much that's tipping back and forth? That isn't supposed to do that. That should be relatively rigid. And as you can see, it's not at all. It's shaking all over the place. And do you see where the brass is worn down there? That's from that barrel tilting over and scraping up against it. And if you look at the inside of the plate here, you can see more evidence of that happening. And that, once again, is because that bushing has failed. And that is something that can be corrected for these Seikos. Take a look at this. You can buy these online. These are jewels, so ruby jewels, just like the rest, that are sized for this barrel arbor. So I'll do a quick test here just because I want to see if they actually fit. But as you can see, it goes right over the top. And a jewel is great as a bearing because it's super hard. These are 9 out of 10 on the Mohs scale. They're one below a diamond, and they hold up against that steel really, really well. So I need to install these. Now, what I'm going to do is measure these because I want to know how big the hole that they need to now go in is. And I'm going to use this awesome micrometer that I have. And as you can see, it'll allow you to measure very small things on the little plate there. And I'm going to measure the other one here as well. Now, after doing some research, I looked up the Seikologist here. Again, there's such a cool community of watch repairs now. This is Ashton. I've watched his videos for a while, and he helped me out with another project back in the day. And he's a Seiko specialist for sure, although he's also just a great watchmaker, trained and all that stuff. And he has a video that shows how to do this, and I use that as my reference. Now, if you look here, that inner bushing is going to be replaced by this jewel. Now, the cool part is that one can just be pushed out, but this one can't. So there is no actual bushing, it's just the plate, and that means that a hole needs to be made bigger, and that means kind of drilling. We call it reaming. And then the new jewel can be placed in its stead. So let's do this. Deep breath. This is unforged territory, let's just say, but I've got my jeweling tool here, and this allows you to press in and out fittings and jewels on a watch. So the first thing we want to do on that bigger jewel setting is just press out the current one. The current one is made out of brass or maybe steel or something like that. This one looks like it's brass, and we can push it out and then simply push in the new jewel. And as you can see, it pushes straight through. And then I can remove the plate, and then the jewel just falls down below, or sorry, the setting just falls down below. So now we need to put in the new one, with the jewel one that I found online. And so we'll set this up to do so. So I've got a flat surface down below, and then I can kind of seat the jewel, and then I'll use my jeweling tool to press it flatly into place. Okay, gently here. I don't need to crack a jewel. So you can see how it just pushes it flatly into place. Just like that. So not too hard at all. That's actually the easy one, because it's a direct replacement for the part that was already in there. It's just a better one. So to do the other, though, I need a different tool. So I'm going to use, this is a different jeweling tool that I got. And this one has this thing's called a spindle in the middle that you can remove and replace with other stuff. So first things first, these are what they call reamers. I need the size 159. That's 1.59 millimeters, because the jewel that's going to go on is 1.6. So you need that tiny difference, 1/100 of a millimeter, and that will allow it to friction fit. Now, this is the part that's actually going to hold the reamer itself. And it's just a little collet on the end. And as you can see, I can tighten it down and it will hold that steady. And then I can use that with the other tool here to do it. Now, the way I actually do this, though, is I don't go from the size of the hole up to the one that I want. I go from the size of the hole up one, up one, up one size over and over again. And then you go up just all the way up until the one you want. So here we go. These are called self-centering reamers also, so they will automatically kind of find the center point of that hole. There are other ways to do this. Ashton used his lathe, for example, but I think this is an acceptable way to do it as well. And again, I'm just going to work my way up the sizes, and eventually this hole will get slightly bigger and slightly bigger over time until it gets to the size that I want. And then I should be able to just press that jewel that I bought in. I have to say this is a little nerve-wracking. I haven't really done much work like this before, so hopefully it turns out well. This augmentation is really good for two things. It does improve performance, but also longevity. You know, I talked to Jordy and Mike, and you know, the goal for this watch is for it to last for generations, and that means you know, making sure that the fallible parts on it are fixed. Okay, now one thing that I do need to do is just bevel the edge of this a little bit. So I use this little beveling tool. It just has a rounded kind of cutter on it, and it just allows you to just take that edge. And this helps with seating the jewel as well. It also just looks a little bit better, although it looks like I left a little bit of a burr on there. So I'm just going to give it a quick cleanup. There we go. And I can do this to both sides of the movement. And this, again, will just allow me to make sure that I can seat that jewel properly. I don't need to do much here, just kind of take the edges off a little bit like that. And now I should be able to once again set up my jeweling tool to install the jewel in that spot. Let's take a look. Okay. And then seat it. There we go. That looks exactly right. Oh, that's great. And the jeweling tool here also allows you to set the depth of the jewel or adjust it so that if things don't line up quite properly, you can go in and make any tweaks that are necessary. So let's give it a try out here though. I'll put the barrel in and make sure that it spins and that it looks like nothing's binding up or falling off or anything like that. And we can just give it a quick test. Let's see. Nice. That looks good. And I don't really see much in the way of up and down. You can see there's a little bit of play, but you do want some amount of play there. But I don't see it floating around like it did before. So that looks pretty good to me. Now, this does mean that I need to reassemble this again. So I'll kind of cruise through here because it's the same thing that I did before. And I need to do everything again, by the way. I need to clean it, reassemble it, oil the jewels, everything. But as we've already seen that, let's just get to the part where this thing's running again. And there it goes. So we're back to where we started, except for the time grapher. Let's see how it does. Very nice. Already we see a little jump in amplitude there to the 240s from the 230s. And look at that trace. Zeros, okay, a little bit down, but still zeros and 0.1 milliseconds. This thing is running awesome. So that worked really well. And again, we get the dual benefit of it running a bit better now, but really importantly, we get that longevity for the long term. And again, it's super cool, right? This is just, you know, I was able to research this stuff on YouTube and find out all of this type of stuff about that's a common error on these and that's a recommended fix. And I was able to find the parts. One really cool thing about Seikos, and particularly this movement as well, is the parts availability. Like I bought those off of a website. Like somebody made those and I bought them. That is not something that I ever really get to say on this channel. It's always scrounging around on eBay or trying to source parts from a movement. And oh boy, speaking of sourcing parts, oh my God, this was that rusted jewel or wheel, and it is gone. Wow, it has turned to mud. And that means I'm going to need to order another one. Now, in the meantime, I can just go ahead and throw this on here for reassembly purposes, but I am going to have to go online and find a replacement, at least for that star wheel, if not for the spring, as maybe even the crown and stem too. That's a bummer. The rust did look fairly bad on it, but sometimes those things can come back to life pretty well, but not this time. That one was completely gone. All right, I'll put the cannon pinion on. And we can go ahead and continue our reassembly with the other side. This is called the dial side of the movement for obvious reasons. And this one has got kind of a lot going on because this one has the calendar function with the day and the date. This is also what they call a quick set calendar, where you can use the crown to sift through the date without having to manually, like when you set a watch, how like the hands spin around and it's like, okay, it goes by 12 and then, okay, it goes by 12 again. And it kind of takes forever. Well, if you need to, sift through 17 days of that, it can be a bit much. And the functionality with the quick set lets you just flip right through only the date part and get it to the one that you want. Okay, we can put the keyless works together as well. This is the setting lever spring. And as you can see, it looks like it's functioning properly, but it does need to be lubricated. Anytime you have metal on metal like that, it's going to need the grease. Also for this retaining spring over here, I did put a bit too much on there, but I want to make sure it gets into the right parts, and I can always clean off the excess with a little bit of Rodico. This red oil is the synthetic oil that is medium viscosity. In fact, I should mention all of the oils I use on this are synthetic oils at this point. They're really fantastic. They're made by a company called Mobius, and they're the ones who make basically all the oils for the Swiss watchmaking world. There are specific oils for Seikos that have corollaries from the ones from Mobius to here, and you can find those pretty easily. Find out which one substitutes in for the Seiko one. You don't need to get, brand specific oils really ever. Okay, so this is the calendar wheel. Yes, that is plastic. They do tend to hold up fine, but I'm generally not a fan of using plastic parts in a watch like this. It just doesn't feel right, and they are much more vulnerable. You can see that post that sticks up on there. If something gets jammed up and that gets worn off, then the calendar doesn't work anymore. By the way, I realized that I forgot to put on this intermediate wheel before putting on that little bridge, so I need to take it off. That happens all the time. It's totally fine. Just take a breath, undo what you did, and put it back together. It really only takes another minute. And also, I like to view it as kind of practice. I think that there can be this feeling when you do a project like this that if you get it running again, you'd never be able to do it again. I know it sounds weird because it's like, well, you could just put it back together again, right? But it feels like emotionally, it feels like you're like, did I do it right? Is everything in the right place? And then when it actually works, it kind of feels like a miracle. But it's not. It's like you do know how to do it. And I'll tell you, for me, it usually comes around the third time that I put together a movement. Then I'm kind of like, my confidence goes up a lot, where I'm like, okay, I remember this stuff now. I can do this over and over again. It's really just when you're first working on a movement you haven't worked on that feeling creeps up. Okay, the date disc can go into place, as well as this cover. This cover encompasses multiple things. It holds the date disc in place. It also has a jumper for the day. It also is a cover for some of the other parts. And as you can see, when I push the crown in, it advances the date by 1 day. And that's that quick set I was talking about. And then this is how you would do it normally. I just want to make sure that the date's ticking over properly. And again, it does look like it is. So now I can put on the day disc. This one has a little C-clip that goes on it. And it's an interesting one because it's actually curved on one side, and there's this real temptation to put the curved side up, but you actually put the curved side down. And in fact, it says so. C-ring upward, it says. And that's so that you can get a screwdriver under there. And as you can see, it advances the quick set and the regular advances just fine. So that's looking good. And that means I can continue with the automatic winding works here. This uses what they call a magic pawl, I think. It's a really incredible little system. Probably the most simple yet efficient way to do an automatic. It uses these two little pawl arms that have a special hook on the end that interact with a wheel. that allows it to push and or pull the wheel so that it only spins in one direction. It's really crazy. Take a look at the dial here, by the way. You see the 2N, that actually is the date of the watch. The 2 is 1972 and the N is November. And it's interesting because on the watch case back, it also has that. You can find those same numbers on there, and it'll tell you, if you know how to decode it, the year and month that the watch was manufactured. So this was a November 1972 Seiko Pogue. God, that dial. That dial is a vibe. I mean, that thing hits you, right? Like it is undeniable when you see it. You're like, oh, that's a Pogue. I know what that is. It's crazy. So now I need to set the date until it just clicks over, and then I can start to address the hands. Now, these hands are very beat up. As you can see, this seconds hand there, I don't think that there's any way for me to bend it back realistically, plus all the paint's gone. The sub-seconds hand actually looks a little bit better. It's missing a spot of paint, but it's okay. And then the hour and minute hand, they are pretty tore up. That loom does not look very good. But this is one of those things about working on these Seikos. You can buy the parts. Yes, these are actually aftermarket, but they look great. Look at these hands. They were made for this particular movement, and they look really, really nice. Now, you'll notice here, by the way, the seconds hand has this dot at the end. Apparently, that's for handling it, but it also requires clipping that off. Not sure I love that design, but I can deal with it, and I will. This, by the way, is that rotating inner bezel, but I talked to Jordy and Mike, and they said they wanted it to look like it used to with the yellow bezel, and guess what? You can buy those too. This one is also aftermarket replica, but that means the price is pretty low. And of course, like all the watches I work on, I always send back all the original parts, regardless of what they are, to the owner so that they have them on hand if they ever want to switch them out. And but they love the idea of giving this watch that renewed look. I'm not going to be polishing the case or anything like that, but yeah, it is getting a new one of those. Speaking of new parts, that's right. You can buy pushers too. It is incredible. It feels so freeing to just be able to buy these parts. So the way this works is these pushers go in, and then there's this movement ring you can see sitting there, and that's actually what holds them in place. I had taken that out prior to the disassembly, and that's why they were firing off all over my benches, because I didn't have those there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the movement ring and kind of try to hold the pusher in while I assemble it, just like this. And then I can carefully make sure that these pushers are held in place. And then we can continue with the case back here. Brand new gasket for it. Yep, I bought that too. And I can go ahead and screw that down. I'm not going to put it down all the way because I still need to put the hands and the crystalline stuff into place. I just want something to do with that. So I was able to find a new one of these star wheel things, and you can see the difference here. The tines are completely gone on that. This one also came with a brand new stem, a brand new crown. But I've decided I actually want to use the old crown because it has a little bit of patina that matches the rest of the case, and it's in perfectly fine shape. Same thing with the stem. So I'm just going to put the new spring and the gear on the old crown and stem. That's just a judgment call by me. I had to buy the thing as a package. They're not cheap, by the way. You know, just to give you an example, that one was a original Seiko part, but still new. It was $150. But like, you know, some of the other parts weren't that much at all. Under $50 for the pushers, for the bezel, for the gaskets, for the hands. Each of those was, you know, call it like $30 to $50. And that sounds like a decent amount, but when you start looking around for used parts and you're paying more than that for ones that are used, you kind of feel happy that you had the opportunity to buy these ones. Okay, now I can put the hands in place. Again, these are brand new. And they look pretty darn good. Now I need to clip off the tip of this hand. I'm going to use some end cutters to do it. I kind of don't know what to expect from that, but whatever. I'm going to do that. And then I do need to place this hand. This is very, very difficult because this needs to be at 0. So I'm trying to hold down the button that zeros it before I push this down into place to make sure that it actually gets lined up. Because whenever we zero this hand out, that's where it's going to end up. And if it's a little bit off, it's going to drive me absolutely nuts. Take a look at that. It works. That's pretty cool. Now I can put on the, again, replacement minute recording hand. It's a little tricky to get this thing on here. But eventually we do so. We persevere. Okay. And let's see how it works. I'll start off the chronograph and make sure that that hour or that minute hand actually turns over once that minute comes around. And, oh no. Oh my God, it stopped the whole thing? Oh wow. Okay, well that's a disaster. After playing around with it for a while, I realized that the pipe, that's the part that goes onto the post there, is really long on the new one. And I think it's reaching down far enough to screw it up. So I put the old one on and yeah, see now it works. You can see that little thing click over. So I'm just going to go with the old hand. It looks fine on the dial anyway. Brand new crystal. That's another thing I got. And I also got a replacement gasket here. I got that because it was like 20 bucks and I figured why not? Although I have to say the old gasket was holding up quite well anyway. Okay, now I can put the new crystal into place. It's held on by the bezel and I can put the bezel into place as well. Now I need to press this down and well, after I get it lined up perfectly, I'm going to kind of half seat it, but I'm going to use my rover press to do this. But check this out. This is really cool. So this is the type of tool that I would use to do that. It's a Delrin kind of a bezel press / crystal thing, but it doesn't, there's no attachment for my rover press. So I went on eBay and I actually found there's a guy in England who makes these things. He machines these and I ordered them. And check this out. It has the proper screw for the top part here, and then it's fitted to the rover press on the bottom. And I got a couple of them, one for the top and one for the bottom. And it was funny because he actually messaged me because he recognized my name on there. And he watches the video, so he was excited with him and his kid to see these. So here you go. Here's your cool invention. I just love it that people in the watchmaking community come up with these really cool little products and ideas. So as you can see now, it'll fit right over that bezel, and I can use my press to firmly press it into place just like that. Beautiful. Another cool tool in my arsenal, and it'll allow me to use a whole bunch more with my rover press. Okay, now I do need to put on the automatic winding rotor here still. And as you can see, it has a flat side and then rounded on the ends, and that dictates how this rotor sits on there. Again, another simple design. It means that the rotor can't spin on top because of that flat side. And once it gets seated properly like that, then I can just simply screw it down. That's it. It's that simple. That rotor will move around as the owner of this watch moves their wrist, and that will automatically wind it, meaning that if you wear this watch every day like Mike does, then you never have to wind it. You'll just pick it up in the morning and off it goes. These type of watches usually have about a 40-hour power reserve, call it 36 to 40. More modern watches have 48 as kind of the standard. And then even more modern watches, they can have much, much longer ones. Okay, take a look at the bracelet here. This is the original bracelet that came with it. And as you can see, it does have some wear. Particularly this last link has come apart a little bit. So I'm going to use my pliers just to gently put it back into place and realign it. I can't really go crazy with this, because there's only so much you can do. But at least on this last link, I can make sure that this that it's properly secured so that it'll stay on. You can see that there's end links here, and then you put a spring bar through. And then I can use my sweet bolt action spring bar tool from Hassler Instruments. I'm telling you, there's just so many people doing so much cool stuff in this community. Little projects like, the ones for my rover press and this bolt action spring bar tool. It's just so cool that so many people are doing these neat little side projects. Okay, putting the bracelet on this thing. And with that, we will be finished. Let's see how it came out. Oh, that looks awesome. Look at that. Brand new hands, new pushers, a whole bunch of new stuff on it. And it actually all kind of works. I was a little worried that the hands might look a little bit too much, being brand new against a somewhat patinaed dial. But the truth is that dial's so bright and so in your face that it almost overwhelms the hands rather than the hands doing it the other way. You can see that inner bezel rotating there. I don't think too many people actually use that, but that's cool that it's there. And then again, I can make sure that the date turns over at the right time. We saw the chronograph running and you can see pretty close. I think I was within about 2 minutes there of that thing turning over. And then the day will also turn over as the night goes on. Again, what a cool watch. So much personality and so much meaning for the owner and for Jordy here. Mike, I hope you get well soon, and I hope you enjoy this watch for many, many years to come. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on it. If you want to find me on Instagram, my name is wristwatch_revival over there. I post almost every single day, and I hope you like what I have to offer over there. With that, I just want to thank you for joining me on this journey, and we'll see you next time.